What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the Pika Pika Papa, and every year in March, the Pokemon Company International releases a number, and that number is the total number of Pokemon cards that have been printed all time. Now, what that allows us to do is, because they have provided this number every single March for multiple years, going all the way back to 2017, is we are able to use simple math to figure out how many cards were printed in that previous March to March cycle, right? So if you look in that blue column right there, that's the year. And then in that peach column right there, I have the cards, and it's in parentheses with a B, yes, because this represents cards printed in the billions, which is an incredible number to think about, the billions, okay? And then in the green column to the right, that shows your year-over-year growth. So as you can see, in March of 2025, the Pokemon Company International came out and said, hey, so far we've printed a total of 75 billion cards. And then in March of 2024, they had come out and said, we've printed a total of 64.8 billion cards. So very simple math. You take the total number of cards that had been printed in March of 2025, you subtract the number from the previous year, and that shows you that from March to March in 2024 versus March to March in 2025, there was an additional 10.2 billion Pokemon cards printed. But to me, that's a little bit of a record scratch, because you don't expect the printing numbers to come down. Matter of fact, if you look at that first green year-over-year chart, you don't see the number of cards printed decrease except 2018 to 2019. Even 2017 to 2018, they printed 2.1 billion, and then 2.1 billion, and then 2019, that number decreased down to 1.5 billion. But ever since 2019, the number of cards that have been printed year over year has increased. But another thing that I like to focus on is this. I think this is a really important metric, and this is your year-over-year growth. Now, when you are a business, obviously your goal is to grow the business, to make more money. If you have shareholders, you have to do right by them. And obviously the Pokemon Company is always trying to grow and elevate their brand. If you look in the gray columns to the right, you can see the number of languages and areas that Pokemon cards have been printed and distributed in. So obviously they are trying to distribute this in as many areas as they possibly can. Now, what I think is fascinating is the rate of year-over-year growth had been steady. You see that when you look at 2020, when you look at 2021, they were growing by 12% per year. That's great. Then what happened in 2022? That was the reverberations of the pandemic craziness, where, if you think getting Pokemon today is hard, it was as hard, if not harder, back during the pandemic craze. You had all kinds of macro level things that were going on, which was making it incredibly hard to get Pokemon cards. So the Pokemon Company did what they should do. They responded, and they printed and printed and printed, and they finally were able to knock all those scalpers down, and they were finally able to meet the demand. And then things started to normalize a bit. If you look, 2023 and 2024, the growth was consistent at plus 22%. But then again, I can't figure it out. Why in 2025 did they print less cards than they did in 2024? And why was the rate of growth lower? It just doesn't make a ton of sense to me. And obviously, we don't know what happens behind the scenes at the Pokemon Company International. One could argue that, listen, Scarlet and Violet didn't come out on fire, so maybe they felt like in the next year they didn't have to print as many as they had because the demand simply wasn't there. But all generations start off relatively flat. Sword and Shield started off flat. Sun and Moon started off flat. This is not a pattern that we have not seen in the past. So to me, that was very interesting. But what that leads to me to think is that there are going to be some really awesome sets that could end up, compared to their peers, I'm not saying they're short printed as in you have to run out and buy them. I'm not saying they're short printed like Team Up was, right? Now that booster box is going for $4,000, but I do think there are going to be some really awesome buying opportunities in that March to March year, from 2024 of March to 2025 of March. Those sets that were produced, where I think there might be less of them available than some of the other ones out there. So I think that's a really important point, and I'm going to talk specifically about some of those sets throughout the course of this video, because those are the types of things that I want exposure to. Obviously, demand is at an all-time high right now. I don't see the demand changing anytime soon. I just continue to think that, this next set or the next series that's going to be coming out after Scarlet and Violet, right? The Mega Pokemon, the abbreviated series, I think that's going to absolutely crush. So I think that's going to keep demand high. And then who knows what we have coming after that. But the Pokemon Company is, it's running on rocket fuel right now. So as long as the demand remains high, if there are some sets that have some really awesome cards in it, and they might be just a little bit short printed for some of their peers, that to me, that's a buying opportunity all day long. So that's what we're going to be talking about. And again, This is fascinating information. I think it's really, really important. What I will guess, and I was wrong. I said, listen, when we get this number in 2024, when I did this video, I said, when this comes out in 2025, it will either be at 22% year-over-year growth or more. Like, I never in a million years would have guessed that they would have actually printed less cards. As a business, it doesn't make sense. As a business, it doesn't do you any good to print less cards. And if you look at how they've done since 2019, they've never done it before. So again, I could go down a rabbit hole on how little sense it makes to me, but I'm not going to do that. However, savvy people will see some opportunity, and maybe we can get some sets and some booster boxes that are going to do really, really well in the long run. So before I get into those specific sets, if you love the data-driven approach, if you love thinking outside the box like I do, we have a ton of fun on this channel, and I would love it if you hit that subscribe button or give us a thumbs up. We do fun stuff like this all the time, and I'd love to have you along for the journey. So with that out of the way, let's look at some of these sets that I think might have some opportunity. Now, these are the sets. So Temporal Forces came out in March of 2024, but again, those numbers represent the number of cards that were produced. My guess is that the vast majority of Temporal Forces was probably produced prior to March of 2024. So of course there was some that was produced afterwards, but I think the lion's share of that was printed before March of 2024. So I'm specifically looking at Journey Together, Prismatic Evolution, Surging Sparks, Twilight Masquerade, Shrouded Fables, and Stellar Crown. Journey Together came out in March of 2025, but you would imagine the lion's share of that production came before then. So again, that's why it's really important to note that the production numbers that Pokemon Company shares is from March to March. So when I look at these sets, obviously some of these jump out the page at you. First off, Shrouded Fables, womp womp. I absolutely have no desire to add anything in there. And then if I were to stack rank these sets, we got some pretty awesome sets in here, right? Stellar Crown didn't have that big chase card in it, right? Like, I love the Squirtle card. I think it's going to do okay in the long run, but I got Stellar Crown as like a tier 3 set. Journey Together, same thing, really small set. Pull rates were really, really good, and Journey Together, you know, the whole trainer Pokemon kind of fell flat. So Journey Together, I think, will do okay in the long run, but I'm not sprinting out the door trying to buy more of Journey Together. However, when you think about the other 3 sets, Prismatic Evolutions, as far as I'm concerned, that's my favorite set in the entire Scarlet and Violet era. Surging Sparks, Twilight Masquerade, like obviously the market loves Twilight Masquerade. I'm a huge Surging Sparks fan, so I am a big, big believer in these 3 sets. And if there's any opportunity whatsoever for these sets to have been slightly underprinted compared to their peers, man, I want to be all over it early. Now, with that being said, we all know the Pokemon Company has come out and said they are going to be doing reprints and restocks, and we've already started to see that. The Pokemon Company, specifically for Prismatic Evolutions, came out and said, listen everybody, hey, we messed up. We underprinted this, and now it has been validated, obviously, that they underprinted it. We've seen the numbers. Listen, we underprinted this. We're going to try and make it right. We're going to get more into the hands of collectors. And when you see this article from Poke Beach right here, I thought it was really interesting. They talk about how booster boxes of Surging Sparks and how Elite Trainer boxes of Prismatic Evolutions, you know, have started to hit the shelves already, but they do have this call out about how the new supply isn't as large as the original print runs. And if you think that the original print ones were relatively small to begin with, and then the supply that they're sending out now is still smaller than the original print runs, then it certainly doesn't feel to me like the market is going to be oversaturated with this. Plus, Prismatic Evolutions is just so beautiful from top to bottom. The pull rates are so bad. Like, I just think Prismatic Evolutions, they could print the heck out of it, and I still think 4, 5, 10 years from now, the set is going to be fantastic from a sealed product perspective. And I honestly feel the same way about Surging Sparks. So Surging Sparks, you got the Pikachu at the top, the Latios, the Latias. Like, there's just some awesome cards in there. And then think about it as well. From a pull rate perspective, I haven't seen Destined Rivals yet, and we don't know what Black Bolt and White Flare is going to do, but from a pull rate perspective in the Scarlet and Violet era, Surging Sparks is second in terms of bad pull rates to Prismatic Evolution. So those things to me make them really, really special, and that's why I'm definitely going to be taking a hard look at them. Matter of fact, I'm going to be looking at them even more now than I have been in the past. And so when you think about Twilight Masquerade has been on an absolute tear. Like, this graph represents one of the healthiest growth rates from a booster box that I have seen, I don't know, in as long as I can remember. It's just absolutely wild to see the way this has grown so steadily over the last year. And remember, a year ago, this thing was $100 for a booster box, and now you're sitting here staring at an ultra modern booster box at $241. It is absolutely out of control. But again, if there's not a lot of them out there, then the price could be justified. The other one I was going to talk about here is Surging Sparks. Surging Sparks booster boxes, because of the reprints and the restocks that we've seen, the booster box price is now down to $224. It is cheaper than Twilight Masquerade. Sometimes when the news comes out that there's going to be reprints or restocks, just organically, the price starts to come down. We will have to see how the market reacts to this. Could this be a buying opportunity for Surging Sparks? Are you going to do kind of what I'm doing with Twilight Masquerade if you're a believer in this set and sit on the sidelines and try and see when it starts to form a support line? Like, I don't know what your plan is, but I do think Surging Sparks in the long run, combination of bad pull rates, combination of the fact that it might be, again, just a little bit less printed than some of the sets that we're going to see here in the near future. Like, I think they're going to print the heck out of these Mega Evolution sets, but I still think they're going to do awesome. So really interesting to see what's going to happen with Surging Sparks. And then, of course, the other A1 premium set that I was talking about is Prismatic Evolutions. And you obviously don't have booster boxes, but I love all three of these products. I absolutely love them. When I am looking for something that I want to sink my teeth into, that I want to buy, that I think have the opportunity for long-term price appreciation, first and foremost, I want it from a big set. I want to make sure it's got a huge chase card, which obviously this checks both of those boxes. And then I want a little bit of exclusivity if I can find it. I think the Super Premium Collection boxes and the surprise boxes have the opportunity to be a little more exclusive than some of the other products. You know, you've got stamped promos in there. They're very unique. You have all kinds of different stamped promos in the surprise box, but then the Pokemon Center exclusive ETB, we've seen some restocks of it. We've seen it come back into stock on the Pokemon Center, but I don't know if we're going to see any more. We'll just have to wait and see. And that price coming in at $272. I understand that's a ton of money. Like, not a lot of people, myself included, want to run out and spend $272 on a Pokemon Center exclusive Elite Trainer box, but in the long run, it might end up being a steal. That Super Premium Collection getting down near that $200 price point. Now it's down to 216 bucks. Like, in the long run, could that be a steal? I shouldn't do it, but I slightly compare Prismatic Evolutions to Evolving Skies, and I know it's not a great comparison, but if you look, the pull rate for the Moonbryon is like 1 in every 2,000 packs. The pull rate for the Umbreon from Prismatic Evolutions is 1 in every 1,500 packs. So still way worse for the Moonbryon, but still abysmal pull rates for that Umbreon in Prismatic Evolutions, which could lead to a great long-term story for this set. And I really love that surprise box. You know, as a hobby, we are obsessed with stamped promos. And then you have Evolution stamped promos galore, and that's the prize box. It has come way down. It was all the way up at 80 bucks, worked its way down hard, sitting here at 54. These could be some really cool buying opportunities for these products. And again, I don't have a crystal ball. They could print these things into oblivion, but I have to think that they are spending a lot of their time printing the new stuff that's going to be coming out. There is only so much printing capacity, right? You can't over-index on the old, or else you're just going to continue to short print the new. So that's what I'm thinking right now. I think these products have some really opportunities for some long-term upside. I'm going to be adding some of these. If you've seen my video when I talked about the products I'm going to be spending my money on, I highlighted some of these already, so I'm a big fan. And I hope you enjoyed the content, and I hope you enjoyed that data around printing numbers at Pokémon Company. I think it's really cool, and I think it's worth dissecting every single year when it comes out. So if you had fun, if you enjoyed the content, give us a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, but most of all, have an epic rest of your day. I appreciate you so much, and I'll talk to you soon. See you later, everybody. Bye.